Hello guys and welcome to another Wolf Digest. I am Emeros Danon.
And I am the co-host, Terkanil. Today we have a number of, follow-up stories to things we've been talking about, as well as some new things that we've been watching over the last couple of months, technically, as well as some fun new stuff coming up. So we're going to start off with a follow-up to the CenturyLink debacle from the other week. You know, where a good chunk of the US and apparently other parts of the world lost internet access for a day or so. Well, they're apparently saying it was caused by a single bad network card in one of their data centers that somehow managed to cascade to, everything.
Well, I have actually had a situation where a lightning strike took out several pieces of gear, network switches, some computers, and a network card, or actually three. So I do understand kind of the difficulty in narrowing down a problem that stems from just a network card sending out bad packets. I mean, I've actually had that problem in my network before, and it is an interesting dilemma, because it only manifests when that computer's chatty, and the computer could act somewhat normal. It's just causing a high error rate on the line or things like that. And the only way to really see it is by getting into the detailed specifics of the switch port. So you either have to have software that is monitoring those error rates on the switch port, or you have to go and hunt for it manually on all your switches.
Yeah, but having it take out, many data centers around the world.
Yeah.
That takes effort. I don't care who you're talking about. That takes effort. I can understand one network, but I mean, I can understand one data center, one network, or even one segment, but
I have
multiple data centers and as far away as the opposite side of the planet? My word.
I would dare say that it is more significant than just a single network card sitting on it like a computer. It might actually be like a network port or a network board on a switch, because there are switches that you actually insert like 10 or 100 gig cards into the back of the switch to actually facilitate that extra bandwidth to stack with another switch or things like that. So it might actually be a bad insert card, as opposed to, what's pictured here on the screen, a little 10-100
standard issue NIC.
Yeah,
but even still, to have it actually knock out that many data centers, I'm wondering how exactly the things are linked in that it would actually manage to cascade that greatly.
Well, the really cool thing is that since the FCC is investigating, you can FOI what they find out, the Freedom of Information Act, and request that information, and you can get maybe redacted, but at least hopefully some details on what actually caused the outage. And
we can, once the government decides to start, working again.
Yeah, actually investigating and, moving past this little bit of a non-funding period, we'll call it. But
even on top of that, then there's the investigation from the FCC, but apparently some of the states felt left out. So,
Washington, we know, but also Wyoming just joined the other states. Let's see.
There's a list of them. I think there was about 9 or 10, maybe 11.
Are they up that high now?
I thought it was in the double digit. I've got to, let me see if I can find it again. I remember seeing a list. As I was saying, this was affecting data centers across the U.S. They had at least a listing of 15 data centers. They had, let me see if I can find an actual list. I could have sworn that there was actually a list of states getting involved in this, but I may have not saved that particular article, unfortunately.
It's not that big of a
there it is.
matter at the moment, is it?
No, wait, that's something else. Never mind.
Yeah. What I really like is the Register decided to actually acronym the network card problem with tits up, which is a common term they like to use for things that just go skewumpus and total inability to send usable packets. They backronymed that very well, I think.
Yeah, over here in the States, we commonly say belly up when something dies, whether it be a company or a kit or kit hardware and something like that. Over there in Britain, I tend to hear more tits up.
It's up when
Same idea.
Goes bad and goes to the skip. Yep.
But here it's, like you said, they decided to make it an acronym, so it made it especially amusing.
Yep.
Yeah, so states are getting on this. They're wanting to know what happened, how this could have gone so bad. And apparently, where is this? I think they said it started. Oh, there's your bit. The element turned out to be a single broken network management card in a data center in Colorado. So
propagating invalid frame packets across devices. Nice. So yeah, it was a network management card.
Yes, well, some of the more simple articles were saying just simply a NIC. That's a little bit bigger, but still.
yeah, just a little.
But oh man. It's going to be interesting to see how this one ends up playing out, because it just keeps getting better and better as this time moves on and more people want to know how this happened.
Well, if it didn't impact 911 services, I think it probably would have been a lot less of a newsworthy thing, even though it was a huge outage. I mean, they happen. Comcast has had a few, and I'd say there's one that happens almost every year.
Yeah, there's always some kind of outage I've seen, but it's not quite that common when it's, such an extreme case and such a, as I said, a large number of customers and data centers affected.
Yeah.
I mean, they have it listed here. Part of the reason I think that the Reg even got a little more of a hang on it is it hit data centers, like I said, around the world. And I mean, here in their article, they state data centers in California, New York, Virginia, UK, and Singapore. And that's just as far as they decided to list. And then there's all the states that are affected, from Massachusetts to Colorado to Washington, which is how they're getting involved in the investigation as well.
Yep.
So, yeah, it was a big and all kinds of special problem.
Yeah. Well, speaking of special problems, there was a little bit of fun on Steam and GOG over this past week.
Yeah, last couple of days. Well, this is not really. Let's just say it's more of something coming to a head. So we're going into territory here of a game called Star Control Origins, which was created by the company Stardock. But the problem we're talking about here stems from the essential idea of who actually owns control and the legal copyright for Star Control. And that's kind of all kinds of messed up. A little bit of history on this one. Stardock bought rights from Atari some years back when they were in bankruptcy. Atari got rights through Accolade, who was the original creator of Stardock 1 and 2. And Atari did 3. Then we have apparently something being referred to called the 1988 original contract between the original creators, two of the original creators of the game. And they're the ones who are actually having the legal bout with Stardock. And there's 3 or 4 lawsuits being thrown either direction total. So there's a lot of stuff going on, and it's been going for about the last year. And it finally hit a point where Stardock wanted to make sure that, their game couldn't be prevented from being sold. And a judge told them basically, nope, you can't do that. Result, a couple days ago, on the 30th, the original creators, last names Ford and I guess Reiche, I probably pronounced that wrong, were able to issue DMCA takedowns of Star Control Origins. And these were sent to Steam and GOG. And since then, the game has been pulled from both services. So you can still get directly through Stardock, but not through those services. And so it's just a continuation of this, big, long lawsuit. No one really, it's hard to say who actually owns what at this point when it comes to that game series. And also the other half of it was Stardock trying to involve those two with the game throughout its creation while they were developing it. And the two of them just basically said, we don't care. And then suddenly, near the time where the game was about to release, they decided, oh, we're going to make a Star Control game. And that's where everything went, up the wall. But yeah, it's one of the few times that a game that has been actually in sale, it's not infringing on anything. It was actually from the original game directly. But I'm curious as to how that actually all works, other than the name, the title. Other things involved here happen to go with the fact that apparently Stardock was saying that they could, have the rights to even sell the old games, which may or may not be true. And that's, as I said, it's a mess. And unfortunately, the DMCA has been abused many times over the years. This is just the newest one I've heard of.
Yeah, where it was used on a game that had already launched.
Yeah, a game that's already launched that's been built from the ground up. I don't know.
Yeah,
it's
rather sensitive to begin with.
Yeah, the entire thing is one big mess surrounding another big mess. And it's hard to say how this is actually going to pan out because there's so much going on there that it's hard, due to the fact that it's one of those things of you'd almost have to be a legal expert to even really guess where this could go. So,
yeah, especially since the judge seems to be having a little bit of fun with it.
Yeah, basically said, nope, you're on your own.
In other news, we have Windows 10 finally overtaking Windows 7 as the most popular desktop in the world. And
How long has 10 been out now?
Quite a while. But yeah, since 2015. So it's taken a little less than 4 years now to fully overtake Windows 7. But I guess
there's a lot of diehards.
Well, there's a lot of people that really don't like Windows 10.
Obviously.
I can think of a few reasons why. A lot of it might deal with the overbearing snoopware that they got. It could do with some conspiracy theories relating to Windows 10 being subscription based eventually.
ET phone home.
There's some legitimacy to it. They do have a subscription based plan for businesses.
Yeah,
but
they have for a long time.
Yeah, that includes support and things like that. So it's kind of a specter that looms on the horizon. Is there any merit to it? Don't know yet, but apparently 36% of the OS install base decided that they don't want to risk it. But to be fair,
holdouts versus people buying new computers and don't really think about it until they get a new computer that has Windows 10 anyway.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people that don't upgrade their computer, but every 8 to 10 years, they get on and access email or things like that and really don't do much. They have no reason or motivation to upgrade to Windows 10. There's business computers out there. I know at my org still have Windows 10 machines.
Now, Windows 7?
Yeah, Windows 7. state.
Yeah, I use a Windows 7 system myself.
Yeah, and you probably have to for validation checking of software because you have.
No, that's just what they gave. I actually, when I was issued my computer, we get, like tri-yearly upgrades, something like that. And I just happened to be issued at the end of the Win 7 cycle. So anyone who gets a computer now, for example, gets Win 10. So the next time I get a computer, I'm going to be getting Win 10. Just simply that.
Yeah, that's kind of the nature of the game. Any of the new computers now are going to be CPUs that aren't, quote unquote, supported on Windows 7 anymore. So yeah, there's a lot of driver manufacturers that aren't required anymore to provide drivers for Windows 7 either.
Well, you also have to consider the fact that it's reaching full end of life here soon.
January of 2020, so exactly 1 year from now. And at that point, you run into things like high-tech, HIPAA, and PCI compliance, just to name a few, that will basically invalidate your ability to use that machine in your environment.
And that's the point where it's already going to hit. And since I'm familiar with, we're both familiar with the HIPAA stuff, and that's going to cause a lot of mess, not just for the workstations, but for the servers, because that now also impacts Windows Server.
Yeah, because Server 2018 R2 is coming.
2008.
No, just 2008 non R2 is coming up.
All of it.
Yeah,
they're killing all 2008 versions. So basically,
I thought 2008 non R2 had already been tombstoned.
Not completely. I had to check that one for work. So not completely.
Well, they're still coming up on their end of life, and they will be here shortly. And so it's going to be down to, Server 2012 or higher very shortly.
Yep. And then after that, it's going to be Windows 8 and then Windows 10. Well, we don't talk about 8.
I think Windows 8 is being accelerated to its early grave. I think I would have to double check on what that date is, but I know it's coming pretty quick. Windows 8 itself is already dead. It's 8.1 that's coming up. But
yeah, pretty sure on that too. I think you've got something yourself that you'd picked up. I've not read into this particular subject.
Yeah, LG. They make OLED screens, and those panels go into device makers such as Sony and Panasonic. But LG's 2019 line of televisions, they're marketing a little bit of nice features that would be specifically interesting to console gamers. They're 4K televisions that support 120 frames per second, and that's because of HDMI 2.1 that allows that higher bandwidth to be able to handle a full 120 frames. Before it was capped at 4K 30 or 60 depending on the encoding and whether you had HDR, that kind of stuff running. But they're going to be running variable refresh rate, which you might be somewhat familiar with based on your knowledge of AMD's FreeSync or NVIDIA's G-Sync, which both incorporate that variable refresh rate. And this, though, is going to be derived directly from the HDMI specification, which is kind of what FreeSync does. They actually, I believe, helped make this part of the HDMI specification. But that closeness should make it fairly compatible, with minor tweaking may be required. But because it's so close, it's actually already supported by Microsoft's Xbox One console. And so you can slap it on the other feature, which is game mode, which reduces input lag, basically. Run that with variable refresh rate on your television, and boom, you got a really nice first-person shooter console television, right?
So in other words, we just end up using it as one giant computer screen.
Yeah, or you can use it as a computer screen and get that same benefit of a FreeSync kind of television with low input latency. Now, game mode's not necessarily something new. A lot of TVs have kind of had that before. But this one is boasting HDMI 2.1, which was somewhat recently finalized. And so it's going to support 4K 120 frames, which I don't know of any console that can actually pull that off in modern games, Battlefield 5, that kind of thing. So it'll be interesting to see what the next gen Xbox and PlayStation 5 end up being capable of.
Yay, look into the future.
Yep. Crystal balls and all of that. Now, we're not getting paid to talk about LG, so I'm just
something we found rather interesting.
Yeah, you'll see them announced to CES. Just check it out if it seems interesting. They're probably going to be prohibitively expensive, so if you want it, don't buy it. Yeah, there you go.
You know what we're talking about.
Yeah. Now you
going
want
back to a little bit of gaming news. So I found this article that talks about some of the. So we've heard talk of folk from Blizzard leaving, and there's been various stories about people leaving in mass, either from around the world or from headquarters and so on. And this last BlizzCon, we noticed that some of the names that we're fairly familiar with were not there this time.
Mm-hmm.
And we found out what happened to a few. A group of them, such as, for example, the director that started Hearthstone, give me a good point, figured that where we were going with this one. They split off and made their own little company called Second Dinner. Nice name.
Yeah.
I'll give them props for that one because it's funny.
What about second breakfast?
But so we're talking about, this was founded as, like, for example, Ben Brody, and he was one of the big, deep baritone voices you've heard at BlizzCon. So he was a personality big, loud personality we've known over the years. And so not seeing there was happened. Well, here's what happened. He took off and collected several people from Blizzard, guys that worked on, WoW, Hearthstone, StarCraft 2, as well as got a couple of people from other companies, such as someone that worked on, like, I think it was Black Ops, Call of Duty, and they're pulling in other talent as well. And they recently announced that what they're working on. And they've, on one hand, we're both looking at this going, huh. On the other hand, we're still going, huh.
Yeah.
Because it's a combination of things. One, we have, talent that are doing their own thing, and we know that they're really good at what they do. Then there's the other half, where they're getting their funding. The funding is coming from a company that we didn't really pay attention to until BlizzCon, when they announced something called Diablo Immortal. I'm going to skip that for now. If you missed what happened at BlizzCon, just Google BlizzCon Diablo Immortal. Enjoy. Or you can go look it up on YouTube. Yeah. Anyhow, but the game was done in quoted partnership with a company called NetEase. NetEase is more focused on the Asian market, so especially mobile.
Yep.
And they're the ones who funded or is providing the primary funding for the company's Second Dinner. And this is a large number we're talking here, especially for such a small group.
30 million.
Yeah, and what they're working on is a game set in the Marvel universe. So we don't know what kind of game it's going to be. They've not said anything about it yet. But we know that it's a large amount. We know it's coming from NetEase, so it's probably going to be mobile. We know
Well,
that it's Marvel.
funding by NetEase, which suggests that they want to recoup in their market, which would suggest a mobile game. And Second Dinner, I don't know, have you heard of any game that has come out of there yet?
This is their first.
Yeah, so I doubt they have the ability to just whip out an entire platform. And so they most likely are using NetEase's mobile platform that was reskinned to create Diablo 2 and many of the other Chinese games that are built on that same GUI.
Yeah, unfortunately, but there's nothing been talked as to how it looks or how it feels or anything like that. So we have no clue if there is actually any, structural input from NetEase, or if everything they're working on is their own homebrew kit.
Yep.
But we know that, as I said, that all that started has happened over the last year. We know some of the names involved. There's a video that, showing off, some of their crew, them being very excited about it, which with Ben Brody is not that hard to do. He's a very excitable person.
Yep.
That's especially obvious if you've ever seen him at BlizzCon or even in that video. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. And I can say from looking at some of the Marvel games over the years that they've been So we'll see what happens with this one.
I don't know. Spider-Man was a really good one. So you got.
Well, let me rephrase that. Mobile Marvel games.
There you go.
Because as I said, we're assuming this is an assumption, unfortunately, but we're assuming heavily that this is going to be a mobile game.
Well, if it plays a lot like the NetEase franchise, it's going to be a very Diablo-esque ISO view and.
Well, they've done that kind of thing before. It's been done with Marvel games in the past.
Yeah. I mean, there's still potential for it to be a fun, entertaining, and captivating game, but you just have to understand it might just be a reskin of an existing IP that.
Yeah, it's going to be a bit of a toss-up over the next year to see what happens. There's a lot of things going on, and
hopefully they bring something unique and make it enjoyable and a fun story to play through. I think that's going to be the biggest linchpin, is if it has a good story to play through.
Yeah. Well, mobile games don't have story, so.
There's always a hope for a first, right?
Yeah, there's a couple I've seen that do it, but not many.
Yeah.
Well, let's go ahead and throw that one aside for now.
We'll have to preface this next section with a disclaimer of don't take financial advice from us.
We don't know what we're talking about. We really don't.
Yeah.
We're just taking the stuff that we've seen, but literally we've managed to extrapolate from this in our own opinion of it, and then we're just having a little fun with how we can present this, because whenever we get into the stock market, it's always a mess.
Yep. And neither of us own direct stocks in any of these companies we talk about, unless if it's in our 401k magic black box. We don't select, let's drop money into Apple. We don't have that capability in our 401k. So don't worry about any kind of bias from us in that regard. But there was a little bit of a bloodbath today and recently, right around Christmas, but today is what we're talking about in the tech sector and kind of the market overall. I think the grand totals was about 3% market wide in a lot of the stocks and businesses kind of thing. The IT tech sector seemed to be especially hit because Apple recently, released change of guidance saying that they're expecting down sales for the next quarter, and Apple's had it rough. They are down at 143 points today. They were at an all-time high of like 231 points back in October, so they've had a rough go at it. They almost hit $1 trillion market cap, and now they're about 650 billion. Ooh, cry
Yeah,
me
a
a
lot of
river,
that's
right?
come. Yeah, but part of that, I mean, it seems like a lot of that has come from a lot of the, especially international litigations between them and Qualcomm.
Well, Apple themselves blamed it on the whole China trade war, um, and there's also DRAM they did mention, and we'll talk about that in a sec. But I kind of think that China not wanting to buy $1,500 phones and $800 iWatches might have something to do with it as well. Just maybe.
Well, one thing else that was mentioned by the CEO in a letter to investors. Uh, Here's the very short version. Um, they said, where did that go? Yep, there it is. Wrote a letter to investors alerting them that the company would miss its revenue targets in part because Apple didn't sell as many iPhones as it expected. The link to the letter cites specifically that people are buying fewer iPhones because they are repairing their old ones.
Why not?
You heard it right there. You should buy new phones.
Yeah, right? That or prevent people from being able to repair their old phones. Oh wait.
Well, they're trying. They're I have to say they're doing their damnedest to try.
Yeah,
I
even
mean,
so
oh
far as
man.
to making software that detects third party fixes and then disables your touchscreen and things like that. I mean, talk about a problem with the whole right to repair and all that, right?
And they've been going after that all over the world, trying to prevent people from repairing their iPhones,
Well,
knocking out independent shops, preventing things from being imported.
and not only that, but they have a very, very poor warranty. They have tried even as short as 90-day warranties on things, but their current standards a year, except for in Greece, where they were forced to have it be a 2 years. And I think it's a European Union thing. So it might be in the entire Eurozone forced into a 2 year term.
Well, could be, yeah.
But you got other manufacturers that have 3 year warranties, 5 year warranties, things like that. Apple doesn't do that. So it's almost
But
like they're
why would
expecting
they?
you
It
to have
would
to
lose
replace
money.
it. Hmm?
They want you to buy the new $1,500 phone.
Oh yeah,
They want you to buy a new phone that's more than a video card.
for a company that has more than $130 billion in cash, and they're crying about going down to almost a 30% gross profit margin. Yeah, there's something, eh, I guess, capitalistic about it, but still wrong with that thought. People still want to buy it, even though it is very obvious and upfront that they are gouging their prices. And they just keep racking up the price, and people just keep buying. You know, vote with your wallet, right?
And it's slowly hitting that point. And a lot of people, I mean, for a long time, iPhone comes out and there's a huge rush to get the new iPhone, but that's been slowly trickling off as, I mean, while I can't say that, for example, we both use Samsung. And, but the thing is, we usually go 2 to 3 years between upgrades. I was pushing for 4 or more if I was able to help it,
Yeah.
but my phone died.
Well, there's
Uh,
still little reason for me to really have moved off of a like Galaxy S6 or something. That's a pretty capable phone still nowadays.
Yeah, my S5 was doing me just fine for a very, very long time.
Mm-hmm. Now,
But the only reason I was having but between the battery not holding a charge as long, and it was just, I mean, my phone was just burning battery time at an insane rate. And I was actually having to swap the batteries about, at least once a day.
yep,
And then there's the fact that I accidentally damaged my charge for it, and so on.
yep. Well,
Nice.
I'm strapped with the fact that my wireless carrier of choice has very little choice in phones. It's pretty much the flagships of Apple and Galaxy, or a Samsung, and then one generation back from that, and then a couple of LGs, I think, are thrown in the mix. It's a very narrow selection of choice, but it's kind of an interesting phone plan as well. That's one of the better options for you. So I suffer with that lack of choice in order to be on the carrier.
And unfortunately, it's that locked in bit that a lot of people tend to get cut with. And
Yep.
but at the same time, there's a lot of the fact, a lot of people, it's one of those things, unfortunately, switching between iPhone and something else is not something a lot of people would want to do. And while we might tell people, switch over, you might like it more. On the other hand, it's still a matter of, we'll actually, have to tell people, here's your choice. Here's what's going to happen when you try to do that.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, we don't like Apple much. We'll state that. But at the same time, if someone using it's like, yeah, we might recommend this, but
Oh yeah.
here's what you're gonna have to do. So it's your choice as to what you want to do.
Well, and a lot of people have already made a lot of purchases on the iTunes App Store and things like that, and they would lose all of their apps and things. And so, in some cases, people who are entrenched in iPhone really shouldn't switch. Already had all of that purchase history gone into the iPhone that they'd have to redo in the Android.
And that's
if you don't
that's a
have
really
that
big
baggage, or you don't really care because you want to switch it up, then go ahead. But I recommend it based on the person's ecosystem. If they have a Mac at home, a Air, a tablet, and things like that that are all Apple products, then why not have an Apple phone? It will work better with what you already have. Now, if you don't care about that interaction, or if you don't have that burden of ecosystem, you can move to an Android device and not really feel like you had a loss. And it'll work really well, especially if you are in the Google. You're already using Gmail for your personal email or things like that. It'll just drop right in and you're good to go.
Yeah, many times it's also a case of cost, because iPhones are going up in price and they go up in price fast.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I still remember back in the day, it's like, okay, here's the new phone. It will cost you a few $100.
Oh, you remember when we were laughing when they came out with the iPhone X, or it was $1,000, and we were just laughing. Like, who's gonna spend $1,000? And then they came out with the gold edition, and people bought that too. It's like, oh my goodness! And now they have this XS phone that's fully loaded, is $1,500, and people are still buying it.
And there's like on the Android side, the highest I've seen is was it Asus? Yeah, the ROG phone.
Yeah.
And that thing was a $1,200 phone, but at the same time, it's like, here's what it does.
Yeah, it's a gaming beast.
You should look at this going, this phone is meant for gaming. Do I?
Like a portable tablet almost, but with cooling built in. And yeah. And it was still cheaper than the iPhone. It was sad.
But it came with a lot of, there's a lot of accessories you had to buy as well if you want to really go out.
Yeah, true.
So there is that.
You could accessory up like when you own an iDevice, right?
Yeah, you got to get your ports, but you have to get your ports back. You have to get your extra dongles that cost, 30, 40, 50 or so.
Hey, at least you could pair a Bluetooth controller to your ROG phone. Can't do that with the iPhone. But
anyway, we're getting off topic.
Yeah, I mean, the big thing about the stock stuff is there's been a big decline in DRAM forecast. The pricing on DRAM has actually been on a downward slope in the fourth quarter by 10% even, which is great news for us. That means DRAM is cheaper you can buy RAM at a cheaper price. Heck, I saw a couple sticks of RAM that I bought for $200. 3 years ago now? Almost. It was like $230. So it's almost back to where we should kind of be before everything shot up really high. But
I'm still waiting for my RAM to come back down.
I know, right? But the thing is, the DRAM manufacturers saw that the price was going down, and so they're going to turn down the number or the output, which is going to cause the prices to stabilize and not go down as far. It's almost like price fixing, honestly.
There actually is, I believe, some litigation over in Asia, I think Korea.
In Korea, yeah, about price fixing. And I really think it needs to happen, because right now the thing holding us back from really getting good RAM filled situations is the pricing. I have personally not upgraded the RAM in my computer, not out of want, but because of the price. I'm not going to pay these huge prices for RAM as a luxury add-on to my computer, because they're expensive. Heck, if the price dropped another 10, 20%, yeah, I'd probably buy it. No problem. But
one of the sets of RAM that I got was some DDR4 3200 RAM. And when I originally bought my RAM, it was 185.
Yeah.
Okay. That was at the end of 2016. When did I get my second set? I'll find it again. I think it was like maybe 8 months later in 2017, I decided to, add an extra 32 gig of RAM to that computer. Oh, that hurt.
Yeah, I know, right?
It was $350
exactly
for that upgrade, and so almost double.
Yeah, so you see a lot of people not expanding RAM, being more conservative with the RAM that goes into servers and things like that, and being obviously more stringent on the back end for VMs and things like that, because there's not enough RAM to go around.
And mostly just the cost. I mean, if you can, one of the things we skimp on, even when we're telling people, here's what you can build, it's a matter of how much can you afford on, here's all the extra parts. Now, how much we got left over in your budget? Because we're going to have to skimp on RAM.
Yeah, we know you're making a gaming PC, so you need at minimum 8, probably even better 16 gig. Do you need 32? No, you probably don't need 32, because right now it would be silly to buy 32. And it would just blow the budget. Just buy a better video card instead. That's like $200 of savings there. But you can see in the graph, they've been increasing wafer unit count over the past couple of years. And you can see a sharp decline in actual costs, where they've been having to reduce prices to shift units. And that's what it should be. That's how the market works. But instead of allowing the supply and demand thing to kick in, they decided they would mess with the supply to raise the price to meet demand. It's marketing and it's economics. It's just everyone's liking to blame it on the trade war and using that as a excuse to keep prices high or things like that, even though people have shown they don't want to pay these high prices for RAM, and so they don't sell as much.
I was originally looking at, when I first built my systems, like, okay, I'll start with a 32, and I'm just because I want to, I can max out the board a little bit further down the line. I bought that second bit because I needed it, because I was going to run some virtual machines on that sucker.
Mm-hmm.
And since then, it's like, I'm going to hold off, because that crap is expensive.
Yeah, I'd love to splash RAM around. I'd love to have twice as much RAM in the servers at work. But I can't. It's a very high cost to do that much extra RAM when it's a luxury, not a necessity. And you have to.
And especially when you consider like the RAM price, like I said, it jumped almost to double the price in just 6 months.
Yep. But yep, I think that is all we have for you today. Be sure to check back. We'll probably have another episode just before CES kicks off, maybe with some speculation, covering some stuff that might be coming up in CES coverage. So be sure to check back. Thanks for watching. Do subscribe. Hit that little alarm button so you can get notified when we actually post more content. And we'll catch you in the next one.
Have a good one.